Indie Authors, Use Your Cover to Sell Your Book by Shoshanna Gabriel, also known as Shoshanna Evers. I'm the co-founder of selfpubbookcovers.com. What we'll cover today. Discover how to maximize your book covers to increase the chance readers will click and buy your book. Learn how to utilize genre expectations, typography, and major visuals to reach your target readers. Determine which sort of cover creating process is best for you at this point in your career and budget, whether it's do-it-yourself, pre-made, or custom designed, and know how to get the best cover for your book, no matter which type of cover you use. And avoid the book cover mistakes that will negatively impact your sales. A little about myself and selfpubbookcovers.com. In 2012, I had already been published as Shoshanna Evers, both traditionally since 2010 and as an indie author since 2011. In 2012, I quit my day job as an RN thanks to indie publishing. For my indie books, I wanted to have my book cover as soon as I was ready to publish, and oftentimes before, for promotional purposes. I hated waiting for weeks for my cover to be ready, and then the continuous back and forth with the artist to get it the way I wanted it. I checked out Premade cover sites, and while the covers were awesome, they usually only had a handful to choose from, and there was no way to search for the cover I was looking for, forcing me to spend time going through dozens, hundreds of sci-fi or thriller covers when I wanted a romance cover, and even then I couldn't search for important keywords that I needed on my romance book cover. That's when the idea for Self-Pub Book Covers was born. We'll call Self-Pub Book Covers SPBC, it's shorter. I wanted pre-made covers made by hundreds of different artists in all different genres and styles, easily searchable by genre and keyword, the ability to easily customize the typography myself, and available for instant download. My idea was simple. I wanted the perfect book cover for myself in 5 minutes, without worrying that someone else would have the exact same cover, or that unlicensed images were used, or were missing model releases, that sort of thing. Where we are now. And don't worry, we will not spend this whole thing talking about self-pub book covers. I just want you to know where I'm coming from so you can feel confident in taking my advice. While the idea for SPBC was simple, the implementation was not. It took over a year of development to create the necessary software since it had never been done before. We launched in February 2013, and currently in 2017, we have tens of thousands of covers from hundreds of artists and have sold thousands of covers to indie authors and small publishers. Once a cover is sold, it is automatically removed from the website via our software, so it cannot be sold again. Our artists are paid automatically as well. Since inception, our business has expanded to provide income for hundreds of artists, production support, marketing, customer service people, and technical wizards behind the scenes. We offer the largest selection of high-quality, affordable, one-of-a-kind pre-made book covers in the world. Because of the vast server space and technological complexity required to operate a site such as ours, we are still the only business in the world that offers exactly what we do. In 2015, I made a decision, personally, to change my writing career to write inspirational romance as Shoshanna Gabriel, and to stop promoting my steamy romance written as Shoshanna Evers. My first inspi book as Shoshanna Gabriel releases this summer, July 2017, and I'm continuing my work as co-founder and CEO of selfpubbookcovers.com. So that is where we are at now. This presentation will not focus on SPBC specifically, but instead will focus on how to get the very best book cover. Whether you do it yourself, or buy a pre-made from ours or any other site, or have one custom designed. No matter where you get your cover from, it needs to accomplish one goal: to get readers interested in your book. And I have a beautiful cover here from C.L. Ullman, The Vetted Cowboy. All of the covers except for one, and I'll point out whenever they're not one of our covers, we use our covers just because I have them handy and I like to promote our authors. Maximize your book covers to increase the chance readers will click and buy your book. Now, if you can look on Amazon Books and immediately know which book is self-published and which book is published by one of the big 5 New York publishers, then the self-published book is doing it wrong. You shouldn't be able to know which one is self-published. It needs to stand with the others and look awesome. The general reader doesn't care who the publisher is anymore. They rarely will look to see whether a book is self-published, published by a small press they've never heard of before, or published by Simon & Schuster. Readers do not notice this sort of thing in general. We as authors and readers, we're the ones that notice, but that's because we're authors. Most readers, they do not care. However, the reader expects that the book is going to be 100% professionally presented. On the inside, that means a well-edited story, no typos or continuity problems, a fully rounded out plot and characters, etc. Readers expect the interior ebook or paperback formatting to be flawless. They want their book to work. Having a professional book cover that looks great and is indistinguishable from a traditionally published book cover is your way of telling readers it's okay, it's safe to read this book. I didn't just throw this out there. I made this book as good as possible for you. Millions and millions of books. I have a graphic here on the side. It's a screenshot of Amazon's different categories of books, and you can just see there are hundreds of thousands in every category, millions altogether. Unfortunately, there are some people who don't take self-publishing seriously as a business and will just post unedited, sloppy material with a terrible book cover or even no cover. That's probably not you. If you are somebody who is taking the time to watch presentations such as these, I think you're the type of author that readers love, because you are going to put forward something that looks good and is good. There are millions of self-published books out now because it's just so easy to publish that anybody can do it, which is great, but it also means that everybody does it. So some readers have gotten wary about the quality of what they're going to read. And those are the readers who will check to see if a book is self-published. And if it is, they may not purchase it because they've been burned before. Now, like I've said, that sort of reader is rare. Most readers, they just want to read a book. And if they can't tell just by glancing at it, and when I say it, I'm usually talking about the cover, that it's self-published, then they're probably not going to care. But there have been enough readers who have gotten burned before that you do see those comments on Facebook or forums that say things like, I won't read self-published books because they're crap. Now, as we all know, that is not true. Obviously, there are many, 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 I would venture to say hundreds of thousands of amazing self-published books that are as good or better than any traditionally published book out there. But there's always like that one person who decided to put the first draft of the book they wrote when they were 10 up, and, someone got burned. Okay, so making sure your book cover is high quality, even if you feel you can do the cover yourself. And if you're an artist and you have some proficiency in Photoshop or in design, you probably can. that is the very first step in your promise to your reader. And the promise is, this will be a great book and it's worth your time and money to read it. So how are we going to make sure your book cover is high quality? We're going to utilize genre expectations, typography, and major visuals to reach your target readers. Genre expectations. I have an image here of some genres, different categories. This is actually the menu that goes on our website, because you can click on any of the genres to search for covers. So that means, first of all, you need to know what your genre is. Now that seems pretty obvious, but there's always, the author who says, well, it's unlike anything that's ever been written before. And, I sincerely doubt that, because at some point your book has to go on a shelf, whether it's a digital shelf or a physical bookshelf. And the book clerk or the Amazon algorithm or wherever, they need to know what sign should be on that shelf. Are they going to put your book in, the romance section, or are they going to put it in the sci-fi and fantasy section? I have a list of genres here: romance, sci-fi, romantic suspense, thriller, cozy mystery, inspirational fiction, narrative memoir, erotica, western, historical, or a mashup such as western historical romance or sci-fi erotica, or inspirational mystery. I mean, there's so many different ways you can mash these together, but you're probably going to have some sort of genre that you can focus in on as this is the main genre. So you want to make sure that your cover shows the reader, this is my genre. Look on Amazon's bestseller list for your genre. So if you write romance, which is what I write, I would look under Amazon romance books, Amazon romance bestseller books. And then you can get a feel for what covers in your genre look like. You don't necessarily want a cover that's completely original and unlike other covers, because if it is, readers may not know to click on your book. You want them to see your book and say, oh, I love this sort of book, and then they click on it. If your thriller cover looks like a romance cover, even though there's not a shred of romance in it, the people that are going to click on that book are romance readers. And then when they read the blurb and they see it's not a romance, they're not going to buy your book. So you want thriller readers to click on your book, and that means your cover has to scream thriller. Each genre has different aspects associated with their covers. Study the best-selling books in your genre and you will easily discern many elements that occur again and again. Here I took a screenshot of the Amazon bestsellers in romance. This is just the top 6 that came up. As you can see on the left here, I could go down even further and say, whether it is clean and wholesome romance or romantic erotica or historical romance, paranormal, and each of these lists has its own bestseller list. And so depending on my niche, I'm going to look at the list that I really want to see how these covers are looking. For example, okay, now we get to have fun looking at covers. Here's a romance book. Romances often feature a man and a woman embracing. You might see a man with his shirt off for an erotic romance or a sexy romance. If you have a Western, you might see a man in a cowboy hat or a horse or both. If you're looking at a science fiction cover or a space opera, you might see a spaceship or an alien. On a thriller cover, you can often find blood or a dark forest or a knife. This is a very spooky looking cover here with the dark forest again. Don't be afraid to utilize the tropes of your genre on your cover with the major visuals. Remember, the goal is to get your target readers to click, not to be the most original cover ever. Now, when I say that, I don't mean you want clone covers. I mean, you want to know, okay, this is my cover, there's nothing exactly like it, but there may be another cover that's for a fantasy that also has a dragon on it. And that's okay, because maybe it has a different background visual, different typography, that sort of thing. And as we can guess, this would be a fantasy cover, and it's utilizing the tropes of the genre. Typography. The way your typography, which is the text on the cover, appears can also be genre related. There are fonts that look romantic or playful or scary or antiqued, etc. Playing with which font you use can change the tone of a cover. Here on top we have kind of a spooky cover, and the font looks good with that. And over here underneath that, more of a kind of like a chick lit cover, rather font, and it's more playful. So you can change the way that your text would look, whether you're asking your artist for your custom design to do something different with the typography, or you are trying to figure out a way to make your cover showcase your genre better. Font size. It's a good idea to have your title or a part of your title legible in thumbnail size. If you're branding your name, which is a great idea, then make your author name large enough to be seen in thumbnail and branded the same across all your covers. Think of how tiny your cover looks on your phone when it's surrounded by other covers in the Kindle store. For some readers, it may even be in black and white on their e-reader. A lot of people are reading on their phone, so when they see your book cover, I mean, it is tiny. If you look at your actual thumbnail, I know that's the name of what you call it when it's small, but if you look at your actual thumbnail, that is about the size of the cover. So you want it to be really tiny and still have that, that visual that you can see, and the big type where you can see the text. And some people do such a great job with branding their name, and their name looks the same on all of their book covers. So make sure your cover looks great in thumbnail size, with an easily discernible major visual image, text you can read, and that doesn't look all washed out or like a gray blob when it's in black and white. Which I could also say as make sure it looks good in black and white. Where are you at this point in your career and budget? Because that might be part of what helps determine whether you choose to make your cover yourself, buy a pre-made cover, or get a custom cover designed. Because each of these three things, is going to cost from free to a lot of money. So first figure out, what is the book for? Is it a freebie on your website? That's this image that I have here is an author's website where she's giving away a book for free to people who sign up for her mailing list. And she has a beautiful cover here that I happen to know is one of our covers. So is this a book cover for your own inspiration? Like with NaNoWriMo, they like you to have a book cover. It's fun to look at, gets you through the month, National Novel Writing Month. Are you trying to recover a book with lagging sales to see if maybe the reason the book isn't selling is that the cover isn't the right cover for it? Did you get a bunch of backlist books back from an e-publisher or a small press? Unfortunately, a lot of these small presses have been going under, and people are getting their rights back to, 10 books at a time, for example, which is, great for the author. It's not so good for the small publisher, but it's great for the author when they get those books back. But oftentimes they don't have rights to the cover, and they have to have all new covers. Are you looking to put a cover on a low-priced novella where maybe it wouldn't make sense to spend, $400 or more doing a custom cover or doing your own photo shoot? Or maybe it would, depending on where you are in your career. Is this going to be the next book in a best-selling series? Maybe you do want to spend that sort of money because it would make sense. Okay, so we're going to talk about the pros and cons of different ways of obtaining your cover. This is do-it-yourself covers, DIY covers. The image I have here is an example of a cover that I made myself. Now, I am not a cover artist. I know I'm the co-founder of a cover company, but I am not an artist. I am an author. And yet I chose to just make a quick cover myself here because I wanted to put up something that says, the real cover is coming soon. I wanted something for my blog post that went with the blurb, but I didn't want to reveal the final cover. So I made this myself in Canva, which is canva.com. I like that. I also use the program Paint, and it's just simple, and the main point of it is to say, this is a book that's coming soon. So the pros of do it yourself are that it's free or very cheap, maybe a few dollars for a photo license to use the photo. On Canva, sometimes you can get images for $1. You can go to places like Deposit Photos or iStock Photo. There's a lot of stock photo places that you can get a license to use their image for your cover. Incidentally, pretty much all stock photo houses have some sort of limit on how many books you can sell before you need to go back and get an enhanced license. So usually it is about 250,000. Some places have it up to 500,000, but usually it's 250,000. And once you sell 250,000 books, you have to go back and get an enhanced license for that cover image, which by the time you sell 250,000 books, that extra like $70 or whatever is going to be a drop in the bucket, so that won't hurt you too bad. But that's going to be no matter where you get a stock photo image, pretty much. If you are an artist, you can utilize numerous images in your cover, filters, other effects. You can make it look exactly the way you want it. I wish I was an artist, because if I was, that's probably what I would do, is do it myself all the time. Cons of doing it yourself: if you only use one stock photo, you'll see clone covers, which I spoke about earlier, where other authors had the same idea, where they see the same photo and they say, oh, I love this photo, I'm going to take this photo and I'm going to add some text onto it. And now all of a sudden you have the exact same cover. Incidentally, this is why we require covers to utilize a minimum of 2 stock photos at Self-Pub Book Covers. It's to avoid clone covers. Now, if you're doing it yourself, there are other ways. If you don't have the artistic skills to merge 2 images together, you can try doing things like flipping an image, adding a filter to an image, changing the color, being really bold with the typography. There are different things that you can do to try to make your cover not look exactly like another book that has that same image. No matter what, you're gonna see, even if you're going with a custom design cover, if they're using stock photos, which most places do, you're gonna see at least one of those images somewhere else on someone else's cover. It just happens. If you're not artistically gifted, the cover may look homemade instead of professional. And if it looks homemade, that can turn off the reader, because they're going to think that the interior of the book is like that as well, even if it's not. Pre-made covers. Now, the pros of pre-made covers are they are affordable. They're more expensive than doing it yourself, but they're less expensive than custom covers in general. Pre-made covers are professionally designed by artists. You can see what your cover will look like before purchasing it, so you know you'll be happy with it. Pre-made covers should be one of a kind, as in sold once and not again. If the cover is not one of a kind, you're not going to want to use it, because you're basically, it's like using a stock photo image in the sense that you could just, anybody else can use it. So a pre-made cover should not be just one image, as we've discussed before. You want it to be professionally designed, so that there's not going to be another cover just like it. One of the nice things about pre-made covers, now I know this is not necessarily true if it's not coming from us. You'd have to check the options available on other pre-made sites, because there are quite a few now, but you can play with the typography and make changes even after you buy the cover on our site. Again, not necessarily true on other sites. Sometimes, usually you can ask the artist to make changes if you need to add a blurb or add a tagline or add bestseller status. A lot of times you're going to have to pay a little extra, because you're asking the artist to come back and do more work, so that makes sense. Pre-made covers are good for authors who know what they like when they see it, but they don't have one specific cover idea in mind. Cons of pre-mades. The model on the cover may not exactly match how you imagined your protagonist to look. So, you may think, you know exactly what your hero looks like, and the hero on the pre-made cover is hot, but he doesn't quite have the right amount of scruff, he doesn't have the same tattoo, he doesn't have this or that. The model probably is not going to match, because the artist hadn't read your book or gotten a briefing on it before making the cover. If you have your heart set on exactly how you want your cover to look, it will be difficult to find a pre-made cover to match that. That's just a fact. If you know in your heart what your book cover needs to look like exactly, you're going to need to do it yourself, or get a custom cover, or be willing to spend a lot of time sifting through pre-mades. There may be a key element with a pre-made cover from your story that's missing from the cover, such as a special locket that the heroine wears, or a specific tattoo that your hero has. Sometimes you can ask the artist to make a modification to a pre-made cover to add something important. So if the special locket is a major part of the story, like in the movie Annie, little redheaded girl Annie, she has the locket, half of a locket. If I saw a book cover for that, I would expect her to have, I wouldn't know if she had red curly hair, because that's just from the movie, but I would expect her to have a locket. So in that case, if it's missing, you're going to probably have to ask an artist to make a change, and it's going to cost more money. It is harder to find pre-mades fit for a branded series, although sometimes you can. Sometimes people will sell covers only as sets, so they'll sell 3 covers that look kind of similar as a set. Sometimes you can add a series logo or use typographical branding and colors to fit a series. So it is possible to do a branded series with pre-mades. It's not going to be as easy as it is with custom covers. Custom designed covers. The book cover I'm showing here is one of my Shoshanna Evers books that was published by Simon & Schuster Pocket. And I'm not promoting it. I really am not. This is just an example of a custom design cover. I think it's a really good cover. This is a dystopian, post-apocalyptic dystopian erotic romance. And you can kind of tell all that just from the way the cover is. So the cover's doing its job. However, you'll see this model, that guy with the gray hoodie, you will see him on so many covers. He's everywhere. This exact picture. So it happens even with, the big publishers where you're just going to see one of those images somewhere else. The pros of a custom design cover, there are many. You have a professional cover, it's specific to your story. The models can look just like you imagined them. In some cases, you can even hire a photographer, rent costumes, hire models, and have the exact cover you envisioned created. This is if you have a really big budget, and especially if it's a historical or fantasy, you may want to do that. But if you have the money and you're looking for the tax write-off and you just want to spend what you want to spend and get the perfect cover, there are ways that you can really go above and beyond with a custom designed cover, including a custom photo shoot. While a custom cover often will utilize stock photo images, as mine does here, and you may see those same images used in other covers, your cover will never be the exact same as another because of the various differences added to your cover to fit your story. And that can be true of pre-mades as well, as long as the artist uses more than one major visual. Professional typography effects can make a cover look really awesome. That's another thing about custom design covers. Sometimes the typography can really make or break a cover. Cons of custom design covers. They can be expensive. There may be a wait list for the artist, and you may have to wait weeks, sometimes even months if it's a highly sought after artist, to get your cover. So even if you don't have much of a wait for the actual artist, they have to find out information from you about your book, and then they have to create the art from scratch, and you may have to wait a while. It's definitely not instant. And there's usually quite a bit of back and forth with the artist until the final cover looks the way you want it to look. That has always been personally my least favorite part of custom design covers. And I have quite a few of them. I have some for indie books, I have some, I have for my traditionally published books, but with the indie books, especially the back and forth, because I'm a bit of a control freak until it's the way I want it. Again, that's one of the reasons why I started a site where I could finish off the typography myself, but I'm a bit of a control freak that way. Some authors use all three types of covers. I have used myself in this example because I happen to have these covers handy. They use do-it-yourself for coming soon placeholder covers or free short stories on their website, or pre-made covers for books that are low priced, 99 cents to $2.99, when it may take a while to earn back the cost of a more expensive cover. For me personally, I tend to use pre-made covers for for most of my books, even if the price is a bit higher, but I also price most of my books in this range. So, and this also was a recover. This was a book that had a cover that was a custom cover, actually, Snowden with the Tycoon. And I actually didn't like the custom cover after a while, and I ended up changing it to a pre-made, and it ended up working out better. And then custom covers for higher priced books, best-selling books, or books in a series. So you don't have to pick one and stick with it. You can do different things for different books and at different places in your career and for different budgets. And you might be doing all three at once. Some things to consider. You're going to determine your genre and the tropes you want on your cover. If you are really uncertain, if you know you wrote fiction but you don't know the genre, we would probably call it literary fiction. And in that case, you're going to have to figure out what is most important, the theme of your book that you want to have on your cover. Make sure the cover looks good in thumbnail size and in black and white. Make sure the typography or aspects of it are legible in thumbnail size. The font should be easy to read. If it's too flowery or ornate or distressed, there are some fonts that they look like paint splatter or like crackled, which can look really cool, but if it's too much, it can be difficult to read. Don't use dark color text on top of a dark color image because the text won't stand out. You can see on this cover on the bottom here, I like how the artist did this. She wrote the author name. It's in a dark purple against a woman wearing a pale purple, but she put a bit of a glow around it so it pops, so you can really read it. And this cover on the right, the artist is just using black text against a light sky. Very easy to read. No problems there. Book cover mistakes that will negatively impact your sales. I thought about putting up images for each of these, but then I thought that would be mean, so I didn't. So you've probably seen examples of these, and I just want you to think about them. I'm not going to have an image of them. Okay, so one example is using a cover that your nephew made for you simply because he put a lot of effort into it, even if it's not a good cover for your book. I see that a lot with books that get recovered. Somebody will start off with a book and they used a do-it-yourself cover that was actually made by a friend or their son or something like that, and they love the cover because they love the person, but then they have to admit that the cover is not selling the book. It's not helping, and they need a professional cover, so they recover it. In the same vein, using a DIY cover that is clearly DIY. If you make your own cover, the reader should not be able to notice. There's no way when a reader looks at your cover that they should be like, oh yeah, she made that in paint, I can tell. If they can tell, that's a book cover mistake, and that will negatively impact your sales. For certain genres, there are images that will get you put in the Amazon dungeon. There's also an iBooks dungeon. Nudity, simulated sex acts, even if they're not nude. In some cases, guns. Certain images, and it depends, I think, on who's in charge of flagging them that day, can put you in the dungeon. This means that Amazon or iBooks has made your book harder to discover for readers. It just changes the algorithms. It kind of shadow bans them in some cases. This is mainly because, Amazon does not want to see a bunch of, very, not even sexy covers. I want to say overtly, porn covers. They don't want to see that on all their pages. So they'll kind of hide them away unless someone is specifically searching for that author or book title. And that's just how it is. I've had some of my covers go into the dungeon even though they were really not that bad at all. They were actually very tasteful and artistic, but sometimes you can get somebody that's read one of your books and yeah. Well, I'm just going to stop talking about that. Anyway, I'm not writing books as Shoshanna Evers anymore. So, offensive images, moving on. If you can easily think of 3 people who the image on the cover would greatly offend, you'll probably lose readers over it. Now, why 3 people? Well, everybody can think of like their Aunt Myrtle who's offended at everything. So maybe that one doesn't count. But if you know somebody online, even who's said like, oh, I can't believe that this person blah, 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 and maybe somebody else would be like, oh, that's exploitative. Or if you can think of 3 people that the image would offend for whatever reason, that doesn't mean don't use it because free speech, but it may be negatively impacting your sales and you may lose readers over it. They may choose not to buy the book if the cover makes them kind of cringe. There was actually, I have an example in my mind, but like I said, I don't want to use actual real examples. Unreadable text. In general, don't use dark red on top of black or dark blue on top of black. Don't use a shadow around very dark color lettering because then it just looks blurry, like your text is blurred. A bit of a white glow, like on that other cover, or a black shadow around the lettering can make the text stand out against the background, make it really pop, but too much can just wash it out. Do not have a cover where the reader can't tell what sort of book it is. So you can show your cover to some readers who don't know what you write and ask them, what sort of book do you think this is? If they have no idea, the cover is not doing its job. If they guess the wrong genre, the cover is not doing its job. So based on the title and the cover, with these covers, for example, a reader should be able to say, this looks like a sweet contemporary Western romance, or this is a psychological thriller about a killer. And even though they haven't read the blurb, just by looking at the cover and the title that you've given it, they have a good idea of what it is. And if they can say that and they're right, then your book cover is doing its job. Getting to purchase. Here I have a screen grab of an Amazon product page. This is a cover, this is actually one of our book covers that this author used. And perhaps you have done a search and you're looking for this type of book and you see the cover and this is what you want, so you click on it, and it's the cover that gets the reader to click over to the product page. That's why the cover has to be good. Once you're on the product page, the blurb convinces the reader to read the sample pages. So if the cover is great and the blurb is not, they're not going to want to read the sample pages. So you need to have both. The blurb, you're going to want to also show what type of book it is, what it's about, what's at stake. That's a whole nother presentation. So if the blurb is great, then the reader's going to want to read the sample pages. The sample pages convince the reader to purchase the book. In other words, the book sells the book, ultimately. The book has to be great. If the book is great, that's when readers recommend it to their friends, they review it, there's word of mouth. But the whole process gets started by the cover. If you have a great cover and a terrible blurb, you're not going to sell a lot of books. You'll get a lot of clicks because the cover makes them click to the product page, but they're not going to click over to read the sample pages. If you have a great book cover and a great blurb, they'll read the sample pages. But if the sample pages are not good, they're not going to buy the book. So assuming that you have a great book, if you're not getting sales, look at your blurb again. And if your blurb is great and you have different people read it and agree, there are sometimes you can even pay people who their job is writing blurbs. If the blurb is great, the actual book itself is great, you're still not getting sales, it's time to look at the cover and see, because it's the cover that starts the whole process of getting the reader to click. So you have to make sure that your cover is working for you and not against you. And that's it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about selfpubbookcovers.com, you can visit us online or email us at sales@selfpubbookcovers.com. We have an FAQ on there on the bottom menu and much more on the website that might be helpful to you. There's actually a free book download of successful self-publishing, how we do it and how you can too. It's a book that I compiled with advice from different indie authors, and that's a free download that's available on the website if you're interested. On Twitter, we are at self-pub book covers. You'll see that book here is spelled BK, not the full word like it is on our website. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/selfpubbookcovers like normal. If you're interested in keeping in touch with me personally, which would be awesome, my website is shoshannagabriel.com. That's the new website. Obviously, the shoshannaevers.com website is still up, but nothing's happening on it because I'm writing as Shoshanna Gabriel now. I am on Twitter at Shoshanna Evers. I'm also at Shoshanna Gabriel. You'll notice this for Shoshanna Gabriel, it's like Shoshanna Gabriel. I got rid of one A because I had one letter too many. And for that, I'm tweeting different things on both Twitter timelines, but it's all me. It's all me. It's not book related. And I'm on Facebook at /Shoshanna Gabriel. And I would love to keep in touch with you. And please email me, ask questions, check us out. This is a screen grab from our homepage at selfpubbookcovers.com. I really hope you visit us, and thank you so much for letting me speak with you today about book covers and how they can help you as an indie author to sell your book. And I hope that your book covers will sell you a lot of books. Thank you so much, everybody, and God bless.